Welcome to Home Teams in the month of March. As the year continues to hasten by, we celebrate our opportunity to be with each and every one of you. This coming Friday night is all church prayer, but it is the one time in which 4 times a year we have testimony service. It will begin at 7 o'clock and go till 9 o'clock. Come armed with your great report of victory and the Lord's blessing on your life. We will have a great time. On March the 16th, Brother Mark Foster, former pastor in West Monroe, Louisiana, and also my former district youth president growing up, will be with us, and you do not want to miss that time. It will be a dynamic time together in the presence of the Lord. Our text for this week is Galatians, the 6th chapter, the 9th verse. It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." What an amazing time of the year this is. Every March brings a certain kind of weather to South Florida. And those of us who live here, because there's no real distinction of the seasons, we can get caught not knowing and realizing that the change has occurred, especially if you're trimming trees and trying to get your crepe myrtles cut back. You've got to do it sooner rather than later because the growth spurt happens early. And this is the way it is with spring. I was talking with my mother earlier this week, and we were talking about the things that we wanted to see looking forward as she is reorienting herself with life without my daddy. And we started talking about her yard and the things she loved about the planting and the growing. And there in Charlotte, the seasons are much more marked, and there's a distinction between the seasons, but they can still sneak up on you. I always, when my children were young, I loved to fertilize my grass. And I would go out and fertilize it during certain times of the year because I wanted to have a robust lawn with soft, healthy green grass in the summer. This is just the green thumb, which you expect from me, your faithful pastor. But no, it's just something that all of us have, a certain propensity to enjoy the creations in nature. But when you go in anticipation of whether it's annuals that you plant in your yard, the caladiums or the marigold flowers that you plant, or whatever comes in spring, some people always enjoy going through the growth section of Lowe's or Home Depot, or growing up for me, it was True Value hardware store. There's something about getting back in touch with nature. And if you're really going to do it correctly, you've got to get ahead of it. Don't get behind the weather. You literally, in your times of being in winter, you build to anticipate the growth of spring. Many times people miss the subtle beginnings of spring. They miss that opportunity to plant, and you can make up for it. But sometimes you just need that advantage of being there early. My mother told me when I was young that we had a plant, and my first memory, which was your opener, was the first memory you had of growing a plant. Mine was my mother in San Diego bought me and my sister tomato plants. And interestingly, she told us, and what I could have if I had a Ring camera nowadays when I was just a boy. My mother told us that if you talked to the tomato plant, that it would grow more tomatoes. Now, I told you my mother's a stinker. She had to have so much fun watching me through the screen door as I squatted in front of my tomato plant and talked because I certainly had to get more tomatoes than my sister's plant did. And I was going to talk to my tomato plant. We often overlook first acts of things that we do. But our theme for the year is Bless This City. And I want you to lean forward into first acts of blessing this city. I don't want to just tune in to my neighborhood and my community and my friends at work and those people at work that aren't on the friends list, but they are certainly acquaintances. Why don't we look into blessing those that do not normally fall within the spectrum of what we consider as those we will bless? And let's lean into it. First acts: bless your friends, bless your neighbor, bless your boss, bless those who may not be anticipating a blessing. In the mid-1750s, at the beginning of America's history, before he ever became the first president of the United States, George Washington was a farmer, and he was there working his family's farm until his brother died at a young age, and George Washington inherited the family farm. But the normal cash crop in that area of Mount Vernon, Virginia, was tobacco. Everyone in the area grew tobacco. They shipped it to the old world. They made a quick dime off of their proceedings. But many years, when George Washington was farming as a young man, he noticed that the soil was being taxed and being worn, and it wasn't growing as fast as it should be. So he began to study and look into diversifying his crops. And so in 1760-ish time period, he decided that he would start experimenting with growing other things than the quick cash that a tobacco crop brought. He began to try corn and grain and other things. He began new plowing techniques that were abnormal for his region. He started turning the soil in a different way because he was anticipating that if I'm going to be here, I've got to take care of the here and the now. And I don't need to just take care of it for what am I going to get out of it today, but in the future. Little did he know that 10 years after that, the year of 1775, the Revolutionary War would begin. And at that time, when the war started, Britain decided, we know America, we can shut them down. They have fallen to being a one-crop nation, and we'll stop the food from going in. And it was literally General George Washington's farm that fed the Revolutionary Army, while everyone else was chasing the quick dollar of a tobacco farm. George Washington was concerned about diversifying and making sure there was a preparation. And it was his grain that fed the Revolutionary Army. He even moved forward into that decision and decided as president that he would ask for an America that wasn't leaning on any one crop. He encouraged farmers to diversify. Why? It's an anticipation of being a blessing. Don't look at blessing this city through shallow eyes or a shallow approach. Understand, we're laying foundations that our children and our grandchildren are going to reap the benefits of decisions we make this year. Let it be said that 2025 was a landmark year for the Cathedral of Pentecost, in which the very essence of our understanding of being placed where we're at is by the divine hand of God. And that what we do now isn't for a fast cash crop, but we're laying a foundation that will never, ever be forgotten. It is not just for the hereafter, it is also for the right now. Prepare for tomorrow. Prepare for the blessing that we're going to transact to our neighbors tomorrow. Small acts of thoughtfulness always grow into a harvest. Cast your bread upon the water, is what Jesus said, and it shall not come back to you void. Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in well-doing. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Cathedral, we're on purpose and we're in the right place. We're going to wrap up the launch campaign, but we're going to march into an amazing tomorrow where we continue to give because we are great receivers. We receive of the blessing of the Lord. It's not for us. Destination, greatness for the King of Glory and for our community. I love you all. May the Lord richly bless you. Enjoy talking with one another about how to plant for tomorrow's great revival. God bless.
Good night, God, and thank you, God. Good night, God, and thank you, God, for letting us